Hello, everyone. I'm Trent Luce. Welcome to another Live Across the Pond with my pontification partner, Andrew Henderson, on a Red Shirt Friday. Good afternoon, UK.
Good morning, USA. And bit of green here, but some red.
You're trying to cover up. You look like a Christmas tree.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a little fairy on top of my head?
No. Oh,
okay, just asking.
You want that thing? I can make that happen.
What thing?
Hey, there. Now you have a little Trent logo on your sweatshirt.
Oh, that's nice of you. Thank you very much. So how are we today?
I'm good. I'm really good. Getting ready. Kelly's overstressed
here today.
What?
Do you want to know the main UK news story on all the networks, which I'm finding very amusing?
No.
Okay.
Not yet. No.
You don't want to know yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
I started to tell you Kelly's getting a bit stressed. We got a wedding reception.
Oh, yeah.
This weekend. And so friends and family coming from around the country, and Libby's coming home. So it's always a pleasure.
Are you wearing that smart outfit again, Mr.
Yeah.
Luce? Are you?
Oh, I don't know what I'm wearing. I don't pick what I'm wearing tomorrow.
That's what Kelly would say, not you. she'll say, "Do I look good in this?" And you'll say, "Yes, dear."
Yeah.
Every time, won't you?
But the good news is we have the lamb fully butchered in the freezer. Ooh. And it looks fantastic. So yeah, I was ready to start a fire last night. But anyway, all right. Festivities at the house here this weekend. Now, well, listen, what about your news?
My love to everybody, and I hope you have an amazing time, and you can look back at your wonderful time in Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So, can I tell you the news story?
Go ahead. Hey, Andrew, what's the news in the UK today?
Well, it's quite big news, actually, because it happened around the same time I had COVID. Okay. But there's a big stink because it's turned out that 43,000 people have been misdiagnosed with COVID, i.e., they had COVID, but the PCR test didn't pick it up. That's a big news story, isn't it?
We've always known the PCR test is not accurate about as accurate as a weatherman, actually.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make, though, Trent, is that is a change of the wind. That has got on the BBC and all across our major news networks. That is a change in narrative. And I think it's to coincide with the fact that you've got rid of the test from the end of this year. And that's to make way for us getting rid of the test too. As you can probably see, it's well orchestrated, all this.
So, Andrew, I know for a fact that it's still dividing families all across the world. Not
my family.
Yeah. But just ask the basic question. Why is it that governments globally are demanding a vaccine passport and demanding, like Israel? What is going on in Israel? You have to verify that you have been jabbed 3 times or you can't breathe oxygen. You have to verify. Why wouldn't you just have an antibody test to say, hey, here, look, I have a degree of immunity against this issue. But that doesn't play anywhere, which proves this is nothing about a disease. It's all about getting people to come lock and step. And I see criticism and people saying, why are the Europeans, why are the folks in Italy, why are the folks in Australia, why are the folks in Israel all protesting by the thousands, and the United States by the millions, I stand corrected, and the United States, who always brags about being free, we just comply and go along with our day? That's a fair question.
You're not complying, Trent. Trent, you're not, actually, to be fair to you. Your freedom flu is trending. Your airline pilots, your airline staff, there's a number of people now, your port employees, there's an awful lot of Americans who are doing the right thing. And at the end of the day, I don't want to go one up on you, but I think the real one happens today, actually, that everybody in the world cannot defend. In New South Wales, or I think it's Victoria or New South Wales, but one of the two provinces of Australia, as from today, Trent, listen to this. If you're not double vaxxed, you get a $5,000 fine, you lose your job, and if you can't pay the fine, which is, well, a self-fulfilling prophecy, I would have suggested, you end up in jail. That's pretty serious. Very serious. Extremely serious.
I have not had anybody in Australia confirm this, and I don't like saying what people are doing until I confirm it with somebody I know on the ground. But I believe this to be true. They're actually monitoring where you're at, and if you're not where you report you are. And again, I want to point out, we're talking about New South Wales and Victoria. We're not talking about Australia as a whole. No. You have to verify where you're located.
Yeah. And this isn't anything to do with being a doctor or anything like this. This is common sense. We now know that people's freedoms are being taken away. And you can see it everywhere. In the UK, in the middle of December, our government is proposing an app on your phone. I've seen what's on this app. It basically is social credit scoring. In your $3.5 trillion bill that's going through the Congress at the moment, there is a social credit scoring scheme going in. Any transaction over $600 by any American is going to be looked at by your government. And if they don't agree with what you're doing with it, they can actually close your bank account. This is communism through the back door, period. And I don't care whether people think I'm loony. If that's happening in Australia and it can be verified, if it's happening here in the UK and it can be verified, if it's happening in France where you can't go in a supermarket if you're unvaxxed, it can be verified. In Canada, you can't go on a plane or on a train, it can be verified. It is 100%. You don't have to be a doctor. It is medical apartheid. Period. No argument. Finished. Dead parrot, as the old sketch would say. They're caught with the truth.
Warren actually puts a great parallel to this. The country, I mean, we're always talking about what happened to the Jewish people under Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
Nobody suffered a greater peril than the Jewish folks. And here are the Jewish people of Israel lining up to do the same thing that happened to them in World War II. Explain that to me.
Well, it's generations. I've seen my own family. They completely believe everything that they're seeing on the news and that the government's telling them, and there must be a reason for everything. And even though the figures from the UK hospitals show that the vaccinated people, 72% are now deaths from double vaccinated people, they don't want to look at the figures. It's meaningless to them because the government's told them that the vaccine's actually saving lives, and they believe it. And that's it. And so let's change the subject. Come on, let's just... I got
a different subject, which isn't really different at all, but people think it is.
Yeah.
Wide sweeping encouragement and possible sanctions coming from the FDA today and this week to once again reduce salt consumption by humans. And I think that salt is maybe even above my favorite demonization, which is talking about the demonization of animal protein and animal fat. The demonization of salt has probably caused a greater susceptibility to disease than anything else nutritionally that's happened. I mean, just think about the basic premise. We have used salt since the beginning of time to preserve food so that it will last longer. And now we're told that if you consume salt, you're going to perish quicker. That doesn't fundamentally make sense to me. So today I spent an inordinate amount of time looking back at the history of salt and the research. Guess what I learned?
Well,
in 1977, there was one study conducted by a fellow by the name of Dahl, D-A-H-L. And he fed rats 500 grams of salt a day. And these rats developed some hypertension. These rats developed some heart issues, and it wasn't good. The average American citizen consumes 8 grams of salt a day, 8.5 to be exact. But
Mhm.
one study conducted on rats fed 500 grams of salt a day has led to this entire revelation about how salt is bad for you and you need to eliminate it. In fact, I'm beginning to believe that salt may be one of the key components and minerals and trace elements that you must have in your diet. And I don't like to read on this, but I'm going to read this, Andrew, because it just flies in the face and actually speaks to what we're dealing with in COVID as well. But this comes back to nutrition. This week, by the way, this week was in 2011. This week, a meta-analysis
okay.
of 7 studies involving 6,250 students in the American Journal of Hypertension found no strong evidence that cutting salt reduces the risk for heart attack, strokes, or death in people with normal or high blood pressure. In May, a European researcher publishing in the Journal of American Medical Association reported the less sodium the subject had to excrete in their urine, an excellent measure of sodium consumption, the greater the risk of dying from heart disease. These findings fall to the question of the long-time wisdom that excessive salt is bad for you, but the evidence suggests that salt is actually a key component into a heart-healthy life. People that consume 14 grams of salt a day have a healthier heart than people who consume 5. And yet, what's our FDA doing? They're trying to get you to eliminate salt from your diet.
Well, it's a bit like eliminating carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
It won't
be an atmosphere. Unfortunately, I have to agree with every word you say, and I can't really give you an alternative argument.
Unfortunately.
Well, yeah, because debate is good, isn't it? And there's no debate here. In fact, you know, when a calf, I have to go back to my training as a nutritionist, and when a calf suffers either E. coli or some rotavirus or some kickback in its development just after it's born, because as you know, unlike with humans, the cow transfers her immunity through colostrum to the calf. If that calf does pick up a virus or something that's bacterial, it tends to need to be hydrated. And what do we use to hydrate a calf? Well, we use exactly what you've just described: lots of salts and lots of energy from sugar. Mm-hmm. And to me, it shows that after milk, once somebody gets poorly and dehydrated, the most important thing is obviously to rehydrate, but you need to rehydrate with essential vitamins, salts, and minerals. And the idea that we walk around with no salt in our body is preposterous, absolutely preposterous. Because whenever you are Andrew's liver salts, when you've maybe overdone things, you need to replenish some of the natural salts in your body. They give you Andrew's liver salts, named after me, of course, because they cure everything. And those things are very, very important in life. And it does
if you
make
were
me
only
laugh.
a bar of chocolate.
Exactly. And that's the other thing. This, if one thing I've learned since this whole change in our society through this so-called pandemic, it is that I don't trust medical professionals anymore as a group, and I don't trust governments anymore as a group. And it all goes back to what happened at your election and then all the subsequent things, because they're just blatantly lying to us.
Correct.
Blatantly. You know, last night there was a guy called Josh Rogan who took ivermectin, so he gets the doctor on from CNN and says, "Why did you say I took on live TV that I took a horse dewormer? Here's what I took. It was for humans." And he got him on it. And then he said, "So why did you allow that CNN to tell people that people are taking horse wormer when I was taking the actual product? You actually named me." And he admitted on his program that CNN had lied. Well, that information got all over the world and was deemed to be true. And
can I go back to ask you a question? Something that perplexed me in your little dissertation, which I really liked.
What was that? You
said that cows, unlike humans, pass immunity through their colostrum to their offspring. Humans do that.
Yeah, they do, but it's not. It's in a slightly different form, isn't it? Because that we can bring children up without them having the mother's colostrum, whereas that can't happen in a calf, can it? You can't give false colostrum to a calf because we're a monogastric, and we're actually feeding the bugs in a cow. So it is slightly different. The full immunity comes from the mother. That's not the case with humans. I understand. I'm not a human nutritionist, though.
I don't agree with you.
Okay, well, if I'm wrong, show me the data, because I've been led to believe that monogastrics, we're not feeding bugs we're feeding enzymes, whereas with a cow,
I agree with you on that, but I don't agree with you that it's vitally important for a mother to pass immunity through colostrum, and that brings about the whole breastfeeding scenario, and it's just not healthy for people not to breastfeed their kids. I mean, that's just what it comes back to.
Okay, well, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to try and answer something when I'm not. I'm a dairy nutritionist. I can talk about calves and cows, but I can't talk about humans because I'm not a human doctor. So I don't know whether you're right or wrong there.
You have to fundamentally know that I'm right in that the human body through colostrum is going to pass to the baby the same thing that the cow passes to the calf.
Well, I'm led to believe that human colostrum is slightly different, but I'm not going to argue with you because you could be right. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an expert in that area.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Do you know what you just did? You just committed a cardinal sin.
What was that?
You had already told us that we have lost complete faith in the medical profession as a whole. And then when you are verifying something, whether you said, I'm not a doctor. Well, doctors don't know bovine fecal matter. So you should say, I'm not an animal. You should. I'm not a veterinarian.
I was very clear what I said, actually, and it wasn't what you said I said.
Yes, it is. I could play it.
No, I do have trust in Ted Fogarty. There's a number of doctors I have a lot of time for. The doctors I don't have time for are the ones that say,
I agree.
The reason I can't give somebody ivermectin is because I'm going to lose my job. They should be all standing up and telling the leaders of their industry, screw your edict, we're doing what's right for the patients by our Hippocratic oath. All right?
I agree. But in general, so I trust Dr. Ted Fogarty and consult with him anytime that something comes up, or Dr. Nathan Bryant. There are doctors that I trust and rely on. The medical doctor as a whole, as a profession, has lost credibility.
It certainly has. And it just shows you how much lobbying and money has become part of what we actually do to treat people. Can I just go on to the when Hunter became the hunted story?
Yeah.
Have you heard this story?
No.
Well, this story, I want to, like I like to be ahead of the curve, right? This story is breaking here in the UK, but I have some inkling that in 2 to 3 days' time, it's going to be one of the biggest stories in America. It is the story that comes from Hunter's laptop, whereby it's becoming, the news is now reporting that he had a binge with a prostitute, this is Hunter, for 7 days in 2018. Now, you might think, well, what's interesting about that? Well, according to the Daily Mail, and I'm paraphrasing it here, it turns out he was using a joint account that he has with his father, okay, to pay for a prostitute and cocaine. But the problem is that the account he has jointly with his father allegedly was an account that was being funded by the federal government.
Nice.
So effectively, pardon?
Nice.
Sorry? Yeah, very nice. So he was having his fun on the American taxpayer, okay? Allegedly. Now, what's interesting is that, and this is, I'm going to say, I've read the article and it's inferring something, and it's saying that something's going to happen in 2 or 3 days' time. But what has happened here is that this all goes back to the leverage that the people had on Hunter Biden that turned into blackmail of his father as the Vice President of the United States of America. And I'm led to believe, reading this article that I've read, that within 3 days, you know that he had an investigation into his financial irregularity. He admitted that the IRS were looking into his tax implications. And anyway, I'm led to believe that he's going to be having to subpoena all of the financial records pertaining to this particular account, which now mean that those financial records will have to look at that account from other perspectives that may or may not have been putting money into that account. And as I say, the inference is that the hunter is about to be hunted. And I think the person that's going to be hunted, from what I can see, is actually Mr. 10%, his father. So I just want to say that I told you that first.
It is hunt season throughout the course of America. Deer season starting, pheasant season is upon us. Pick your species. It's time we get the hunting underway.
And you know what else I found out that I want to say it before you? What's the name of the moon at the end of the month of October?
Oh my goodness, you caught me. The harvest moon we've been through, the pink moon is upon us. I don't know.
Hunter's moon.
Hunter's moon. Yes, I did know that.
There you go. Yeah, well, you're useless when you're put on the spot, though, aren't you? Yeah, absolutely.
I even have a boar named Hunter's Moon, thanks to Frank Rash. We got to go.
We got to go. Well, listen. Bye, everyone. Remember, today you found out where Hunter became the hunted. It came from me with my red shirt on.
On the Hunter's Moon.
On the Hunter's Moon. I got a moon story in before Mr. Luce.
I know. I love it. Regaining control for
Brilliant.
the farmer. Andrew Henderson, Trent Luce. See you on over the weekend.
Have a great weekend, folks.